Morning, Kate and Chris. Michaela, let's go inside politics. With me today are Jonathan Martin of the New York Times and Molly Ball of the Atlantic to share their insights and their reporting. Let's start today with something we were not supposed to see: a leaked campaign memo out of the closely watched Georgia Senate race. The memo details all of the challenges for Michelle Nunn, one of the Democrats' top recruits this cycle. She's a daughter of a popular former Georgia Senator, Sam Nunn. Ileana Johnson of the National Review Online nabbed the scoop, published this 144-page document that outlines the potential challenges for Michelle Nunn's Senate bid, as seen by her own consultants. It confirms a dirty secret of modern campaigning. Candidates spend most of their time raising money. Quote, hitting our targets will require us to prioritize fundraising above all else and to focus the candidates' time on it with relentless intensity. It will also require leveraging all of the many assets we have as a result of Michelle's network. The memos also include a list of Michelle Nunn's potential weaknesses as seen by her own team, such as Nunn is too liberal, Nunn is a rubber stamp for Democrats, Nunn is Obama's Harry Reid's Nancy Pelosi's best friend, and Nunn is not a real Georgian. We should note the Nunn campaign issued a quick response. This was a draft, they say, of a document that was written 8 months ago. Like all good plans, they change, but what has not changed and is all the more clear today is that Michelle's opponents are going to mischaracterize her work and her positions. Well, this isn't her opponents mischaracterizing them. It's her team anticipating how it could be mischaracterized. Molly, what did you learn? What was most interesting to you in this memo?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in here, obviously. It's a gigantic memo. I think we can anticipate that this is going to become sort of a refrain in the campaign, right? Everything she does or says is going to be greeted by a press release following the campaign plan, drafted by her Washington handlers a year ago to portray her as this sort of inauthentic, creature of the consultants who have sort of created her out of whole cloth. I think the stuff about her vulnerabilities is really interesting. We probably will hear a lot of that stuff raised, and clearly she's planned for that. The question is whether she will be able to combat it effectively.
One of the things that we always complain about in the press and the voters also complain about is the lack of authenticity or even spontaneity among our politicians. And if you read this, what you get a sense of, Jake, is the fact that the handlers don't see any political reward in such behavior. In fact, when they're talking about stump speeches, they're very clear. You have to give the same speech over and over again.
Right. Don't
deviate from this speech. Once it's written, that's going to be your speech. Talking about interactions with the press, it's almost amusing. It says the press tends not to like to actually report on a candidate saying the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But do it anyways. So it sort of speaks to what can be a bit of a depressing sort of modern campaign, method. But that's the world that we're in.
It also pinpoints groups for fundraising, saying this is this group and this. You appeal to them. We want to raise $300,000 from LGBT.
Right.
We want to raise $500,000 from trial lawyers.
Yes.
Interesting section about the Jewish community where it says Michelle's position on Israel will largely determine the level of support here. Message TBD, to be determined. She 8 months ago had not formed a position on Israel, at least not one that's predictive. Nothing that people in Washington don't know exists as an analysis all the time, but kind of crude if you're not used to that sort of discussion.
And seeing it on paper, and to your point about the fundraising piece, it's a reminder that so much of the mind space of candidates in the campaign is driven by fundraising. It drives scheduling. It drives the message.
And to be clear, it's TV time. It's ads on TV. That's mainly what this money is for.
That's why they're raising this money, is so that they can run the ads on TV. That's what campaigns are all about now.
What else did you think was interesting? I thought one of the things, the analysis of potential vulnerability. She's worked for this charity started by George H.W. Bush, the Points of Light Foundation, and they highlighted some areas that, well, this contribution might be problematic, this group might be problematic.
Well, and Michelle Nunn and her opponent, David Perdue, are both coming from the private sector, so it's interesting how her vulnerabilities in this regard mirror his somewhat. It's all about financial ties to various unsavory people or things. For David Perdue, we've already heard in the Republican primary some of the accusations about outsourcing that his companies did, some of the accusations about his personal wealth. So I think we're going to hear a lot of charges and countercharges from both of these candidates about who they're associated with. For Michelle Nunn, as you point out, there's a little bit of an escape for her in being able to say, well, this is George H.W. Bush's foundation that I was a part of.
Let's turn